The world is no longer the same in the place where humans and technology rule, with peace and luxury being taken over by numerous monsters. In such a world, Paul finds abandoned twins. He teaches them all the survival skills to win over the beasts. It's a story of sacrifice, survival, and the surreal love of father and sons. In the beginning, Paul searches an abandoned house and picks up a stick for self-defense. Without taking the risk of being found, he carefully leaves the house and runs on the street before monsters could reach him. The whole town is deserted by humans, the emergency sirens making the situation horrible. Dark smoke clouds touch the sky, and Paul sees the burning city from the edge. During his walk, he discovers the twin infants in an abandoned house and decides to raise them as his own children. 15 years pass. Paul trains them as experts, and each evening they retreat to their house before sunset. Today, Thomas arrives late after spending the whole day out. Paul eagerly waits for him, standing outside, even though he knows it's not devoid of danger. Joseph insists that he come home, but Thomas decides to wait. In the meantime, Joseph starts shutting each door securely. Just then, Paul watches Thomas running toward home, and they enter inside without wasting a moment, locking each door securely. Paul doesn't forget to ask both of them as part of their daily ritual. Are we safe? After receiving affirmation, he sits with Joseph and Thomas at the dinner table and prays. Before he could start the food, Paul warns Thomas to never be late again as it's too dangerous. Thomas, who walks daily to the nearby town to help Mr. and Mrs. Rose, agrees to return before sunset next time. However, Joseph is not happy with Thomas's carelessness, not knowing what keeps Thomas there the whole day. He questions Tom's carelessness rudely, and a fight starts at the dinner table. Paul hates their unhelpful and irresponsible behavior and wants to stop them. Later that night, Paul makes sure that bolts are fixed to the doors. Tom reads a book and joins Joseph in playing chess. Suddenly, Paul shifts his gaze to their dog, rapidly scratching the surface of the earth with its paws. It's a sign that monsters are about to emerge from the earth. Quickly, Tom picks up the light and checks the basement door. Monsters have been banging on the door with all their might, and it seems they will be inside any minute. Paul and Tom hold the door to keep it shut, and after a while, they return. Joseph shares his observations that there was more than one monster at the door. Initially, they checked by banging, but then they started hitting the door in frustration. The door was brutally scratched on the outside, and it can no longer hold the monsters out if they attack again. So Paul removes the broken patch and goes to chop the wood to make a new wooden patch. Joseph draws a sketch of a wooden box in his notebook and does not share the details of his idea when Paul interrupts. But he shares that he is working on things that will be helpful for them to live fearlessly in the presence of monsters around them. He wants to live a free and fearless life. On the other hand, Paul has made a vehicle. He takes a look at it and sits with Joseph to read his journal. Joseph writes that monsters emerged when humans polluted the earth. Now they want to clear it from a virus named human, and they won't stop until they finish the last one of it. Paul likes this assumption, but he has noticed that with each passing day, the water is becoming clear, which is a great sign. He believes someday the people from other parts of the globe will come and save them. Paul checks the vehicle and tries to start it for the first time. It starts, and he takes Joseph along for a ride. Joseph drives the vehicle, but can hardly handle the gas and brakes. After they return home, Paul wants them to go to the river together while he prepares dinner. Tom does not want to go along, but Paul sends him anyway. In the meantime, Tom angrily accuses Joseph of preventing him from going to Mrs. Rose's home. He could not stop himself and got out of the car at a corner, telling Joseph to meet him at the same place before sunset. Joseph dislikes his irresponsible attitude, but he could not stop him. Mrs. Rose waters the plant when Tom enters. He apologizes for coming late, but promises to finish yesterday's task before long. Mrs. Rose and Mr. Rose appreciate his help, and as they go, their daughter Charlotte welcomes Tom back with a cute smile. She says that she already finished the task, and it's nice to see him there again. Charlotte delivers her dad's message that he wants them outside for a little help. Tom follows her, while Paul, sitting beside a waterfall, sees a monster's hand in a hole. On the other hand, Tom stops the car near the ruins of a broken ship, and after tying himself with the ropes to return quickly, in case of any unexpected danger, he gets down through the stairs. He explores the different areas and picks up a heavy piece to keep aside, but he did not know that numerous little flies and smaller monsters were hiding underneath, that all of a sudden attacked him. Tom goes bonkers at the attack. On the other hand, Joseph could not see Charlotte's dad anywhere. She giggled as she played a prank, and as she wanted them to walk outside for a while, they talk about the end of the world, and Charlotte gives an idea to play a game. Each one of them will describe what the end of the world will be in just 10 seconds. Charlotte goes first, and in her story, a bug infects the whole world after humans die and get sick. Mice take over, and everything ends. Tom's story had smoke that spread throughout the world, and he could not think beyond it before the time ended, and he lost the game. In that delicate moment, they smiled and felt so close, but the sun was setting. Tom had to leave even though he did not want to. Charlotte stops for 10 seconds and hugs him. They feel peace in each other's arms, and at the end of 10 seconds, Tom runs to reach Joseph. On the other hand, Joseph somehow comes out of the ship, saving himself from flies and monsters, but does not find Tom anywhere. Paul is already home, and he worries to see both boys still out. Tom runs as fast as he can, but he falls inside a pit. Joseph waits for him at the same spot, but thinking that Tom would have reached home if he were not here, he takes the car back home. But Tom was not there either. Paul wants Joseph to stay home and fetch a few important things to go on a search for Tom. On the other hand, Tom regains his senses in the pit, but he cannot come out of it without any help. It's too deep and dark. He tries to light a fire, and after several attempts when he lights the fire, a strange sound emerges, and the light turns off. Once again, he turns on the fire and sees a monster hauling and approaching him. Paul hears the sound, and he kills the monster. He gets down the pit and hugs Tom for finding him alive. They decide to stay there until the next morning while Joseph stays awake all night, making sure the house is locked and secure. In the middle of the night, Joseph dozes off on his chair. Suddenly, the roof's wooden piece gets aside. Then a monster enters with its hand inside the window and tries to reach him. It unfolds many layers of its hand but cannot touch Joseph. But as soon as the monster enters the room and stands below the roof's open part, a box attached to a rope falls on the monster and encases it. Joseph's design perfectly worked to capture the monster, even if they were not vigilant. On the other hand, Paul lights up the fire, and a number of small flying insects attack them. He tries to close the slit using the fire cord in his hand, but he wants to save Tom at all costs. Hence, he asks him to stay away, but insects are brutally attacking his body. The sun comes up, but no one returns. Joseph gets in the car and sets out to search for his dad and Thomas at the same time. Tom drags himself somehow out of the pit, while their dog guides Joseph to Tom. Paul is badly injured and unconscious. Both brothers lift him up, put him in the car, and bring him back home. Tom uncovers the moving box in the room and uncovers it despite Joseph stopping him. He is startled to see a deadly monster captured in the cage. They put bandages on their father's wounds and decide to kill the monster to make it their food. But as soon as they uncover it, it escapes and returns to attack. They carefully surround and kill it. Joseph chops the monster to cook, while the room has picture sketches of each monster. Tom suggests taking his father to Charlottetown, as there is a good chance they can get medicine from someone there. But as soon as Mrs. Rose sees Tom with others, they shut their doors on him. On top of it, they refuse to give medicine. While Charlotte requests that her parents help them, they deny any help. And all they offer is that they allow Tom to stay and ask everyone else to leave. Joseph hates these people and makes Tom rethink what kind of people he was spending his time with, as they can't even provide medicine for their dying father. That enrages Tom, and he tries to suffocate Joseph. Afterwards, Joseph takes his father back home, and Tom stays there. Charlotte attempts to cheer Tom and brings him to her room. Her father watches them kissing and orders Charlotte to stay away from Tom. On the other hand, on his way home, Joseph senses there has been a monster attack. He drags his father alone inside the house and notices small and big footprints on the dusty floor of the house. At the same time, Tom secretly searches for Charlotte's kitchen to get his hand on any medicine so he could save his father's life. Charlotte enters and gives him the required medicine and advice to return soon. But his father hears their conversation and points his gun at Tom, running quickly out of town before sunset. He is arrested, accusing him of theft. Joseph tears the wood floors and puts the wooden blocks on the doors to secure the house. However, he stumbles and collapses in the center of the room. The monsters have dug a big hole in the room and they can be out any minute. The house is no longer a safe place. On the other hand, Charlotte's father hands over Tom to a few people who will decide his fate. They tie down his hands and feet and point the gun at him to kill him. But at the same moment, a monster emerges from the ground and engulfs the shooter. Many monsters attack the whole town. They run towards Charlotte's parents' room and drag them outside. They brutally kill both, and that happens when Charlotte comes out of her room after hearing the noise. She follows the bloodstains and screams to see her parents' dead bodies and monsters feasting upon them. Tom pleads to untie his hands to many men, as the monster can kill him anytime, but everyone is worried for their own lives. Finally, he opens the knot and throws the wooden bed aside. But as soon as he is about to escape, a monster appears in front of him. At the same time, Charlotte puts a bullet in its body and escapes the room, taking Tom with her. Tom runs towards her parents' room, but she shares the news of their demise, and the whole house is on fire. They leave the place quickly. On the other hand, Joseph fills the hole in the room and turns to see his dad. He kisses his forehead, and once again he hears the creaking noise coming from another part of the house. Shortly after, following the voice, he sees a monster trying to break in through the door. A hand enters to open the knob. It's a human hand, and Joseph feels relieved to know that Tom is trying to get inside the house. He immediately comes in. His skin has blood all over it. Joseph wants them to follow his plan, as they will be attacked anytime soon. After making a pile of wooden items, he sets the matchsticks and cigarettes on it. While in the other room, one more hole appears in the ground, alarming Tom, who jumps up from the ground to hide from the sight of emerging monsters. Charlotte takes the gun and aims carefully. A monster enters the room and attacks Tom while Charlotte guns it down. Other monsters follow and enter the house through the open path. They transfer the refrigerator to another room and suddenly watch their father walking towards them to guard his kids. He takes the gun from Charlotte and hits as many monsters as he can. After sending the kids to another room, he locks it down. Joseph pleads to open the door, but their dad knows that monsters are so many in number, and he is already dying. He remembers when he first brought his children with him and raised them as his own. At the same time, the house sets on fire just as Joseph planned. Joseph, Tom, and Charlotte get into the refrigerator to survive the expected destruction. The refrigerator falls down, and as soon as they get out, they try to reach their father. But it's impossible that he would have survived while monsters are already following them. They immediately get in the vehicle, while Charlotte points her gun to kill monsters following them in the shape of a big fireball. After a couple of gunshots, they manage to get rid of the monsters and stop the vehicle. For the first time in many years, they see stars in the night sky, indicating a significant reduction in pollution on Earth. The next morning, they reach Charlotte's house. She says the final words to the memories of her parents, saying that they taught her love in a world full of terror and hate. Now they have nothing left in the world, so they decide to seek a better place to live. Tom drives the car towards them, and their new journey begins.